Welcome to Politics Unusual. I'm Morgan McKay. We have some big guests here with us today. Mayor Eric Adams is making his debut here on Politics Unusual to discuss his re-election bid. Then Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado will be here speaking with us about his own campaign for governor. And then finally, we're checking in on some issues impacting New Jersey residents. But first, Mayor Adams just unveiling the Compassionate Interventions Act, his proposal for a state law that would allow officers to forcibly remove people with drug addictions off the streets without their consent and commit them into hospitals. A judge could then mandate that person be entered into treatment if it's determined they are struggling with substance abuse and addiction. So joining us now is Mayor Eric Adams. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
The name fits the season. Unusual. This is an unusual time.
This is an unusual time, and you're facing an unusual election. But first, let's start out with this proposal here. I think everyone can say it's hard to watch people struggling with substance abuse and drug use on the streets, but why commit them against their will?
And that's so important. Not only is it difficult to look at, it's dangerous. You know, many people don't remember the individual who stabbed 3 New Yorkers around the UN area. That person had severe mental health illness, but he also had a drug addiction problem. And those photos that you just showed, they speak volumes. You can't leave people on the street that don't have the capacity to understand that they are not taking care of themselves. We were successful with the involuntary removal legislation that was passed in Albany for those with severe mental health illness. Now we're saying, hey folks, many of them also have drug addiction problem, and we need to address it.
Some advocacy groups and some civil liberties groups are against the plan, but they did praise actually one part of it, and that was including the pilot program to reward people who keep to their treatment plan. So kind of you have a carrot and stick approach almost with your plan here. I guess what would be this reward, and what do you say to these groups who are worried about these people's rights being taken away?
Well, first, they need to understand what population are we talking about. We have a large population of people who are dealing with mental health issues. We have a large population of people who are dealing with substance abuse. We're not using this for the entire population. We're using this for a small number of people that no matter what you do, because of their drug addiction problems, they don't realize that they need help. We're building out our clubhouses. We just talked about the 16 more we're open. We're doing our Bridge to Home program. We removed 3,500 people off our streets that were living at 1,000 in our subway system, 2,500 on our streets, that they have now permanent housing. So we're doing a host of other things for those who understand they need treatment. That small number that refuses to come off our street, those photos you just saw, you should not come out your house and see someone injecting themselves with drugs or nodding out on the street corners, or your children should not go to their schools and see in the school grounds people who are sleeping or unconscious there. These are the populations we're talking about, and nothing is not an option.
As a former state senator, you know that you have to have a partner up in Albany to introduce this bill. Do you guys have anybody that is interested in joining on with you?
Yes, we have a number of state lawmakers, both in the Assembly and in the Senate, that we're going to find a partner to introduce the bill and get it through. We know that at first view, people are saying, wait a minute, what are we doing here? But police are not going to make this decision. Clinical professionals will make this decision, and the judge will have to sign off on it.
Any names you can give us now?
No.
Not yet. Okay. No. So turning to your campaign, you're polling 4th in pretty much every poll. I know there are plans to ramp up your campaign after Labor Day, but what are you planning as your breakout moment? I know it's hard to say right now, but what are you thinking?
Well, first of all, I don't focus on the polls. I was 14 points behind Andrew Yang. We saw at this time in the primary, Madani was at 1%. 1%. And so we're not waiting until after Labor Day. We're building our foundation, starting our communication, and people say all the time, they say, well, Eric, voters already know you. No, they know my name. They don't know what we have done in this city. Every time I'm at a town hall, people, and I tell them what we have done, people say, wow, we didn't know that. Build more affordable housing in year 1, 2, and 3 in individual years. Low-income New Yorkers pay no income tax. People talk about affordability. We put $3 billion back into the pockets of New Yorkers. I must peel back all my successes, how we turned this city around in 3 years. Lowest number of homicides and shootings in the first 6 months of this year, and in the 7-month lowest number of shooting victims. All of these successes that New Yorkers are not aware of, and that's what I'm excited about. My breakout moment is when New Yorkers are going to be able to say, I know this guy's record, and I know he's a working class New Yorker.
But incumbent mayors historically have an advantage usually during re-election bids. So why do you feel like you're in this position where you have to prove yourself, that you have to retell your story almost? Did you feel like you made maybe mistakes in your first few years? Did you hire the wrong people?
Heck, I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, in my first 2 years or what have you. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I trusted people I should not have trusted. Yes, some people had jobs that they should not have had. But remember what I inherited when I became mayor. I had COVID. Our city was just about locked down. We were not sure if our children was going to school. I had 237 migrants and asylum seekers. We were having crime. No one wanted to be on our subway system. When you are in that position, you're in the field, anyone can sit in the bleachers and tell you what a quarterback should do. But when you're in that field and it's coming in so many different directions, then I had lawfare. And being indicted, I should not have been indicted for calling the fire department and telling someone to do a building inspection. With all of that, I want you to look at the day that I was indicted and then look at what I did in this city while going through the migrants, asylum seekers, and everything else. I continue to move the city forward. I continue to pass the most comprehensive housing reform in the history of the city. I continue to build housing. I continue to say we will have universal after-school programs and pre-K. And so the real sign here is like every New Yorker that's go through difficult moments. How do you respond in those difficult moments? I led the city well in some very difficult times.
Now, speaking of one of your former staffers, your former staffer, Mohammed Bahi, he pled guilty this week for his role in a scheme to funnel illegal donations to your campaign in order to get public matching funds, and those are taxpayer dollars. Did you know that he was doing this?
No, and you know what's interesting here is that people covered that story. What they didn't cover is that at no time did he say, Eric told me to do it. At no time did he say that I did it because Eric created this. He never said that, because he was a volunteer on the campaign, like other volunteers. I did hundreds of fundraisers. I had thousands of volunteers, and my paid staff was clear. We will always follow the rules. And there are text messages of me telling people that, follow the rule. And so when people covered the story, no one is covering the fact in his guilty plea, he never said, the mayor told me to do this. He never did that. Now, some people think they're helping the campaign. They do things that technically they should not have done. I think that they make mistakes. But no time did we coordinate with anyone that told them to do something inappropriate. And he never said that. He never said in his guilty plea that the mayor told me to do that, because that's something I would never tell anyone to do.
But he was named as a co-conspirator in your now dropped criminal case. Why was that then?
Because they tied together, when you read through the indictment, they tied together the communications he had with the donor. But the donor never said, I told him to do it. He never stated that I told him to do it. That's where we need to go. We need to go where the facts are. And that is why it's so important. This country believes in due process. You are innocent until proven guilty. The judge even said that, Judge Ho. And so when you looked at the indictment, nowhere in the indictment did it state that they said Eric told them to do this.
President Donald Trump has hinted that he's potentially going to do what he's doing right now in Washington, D.C. with the National Guard here in New York City because of the crime. What would you say to the president if you got a chance? And do you feel like you're in maybe a better position than some of your competitors to discuss this issue with the president? Yeah,
I will never critique mayors across the country. This job, being a mayor, no matter how large a city is or how small it is an enormous responsibility. But when you do an analysis of these high-profile cases, I mean, when someone drives across the country with an AR-15 and shoot and kill 4 innocent people, that strikes at the heart. And these, since the large incidents, it sort of gives the tendency that, okay, wait a minute, what's going on in these cities? But when you peel back the numbers and you look at what we have done from 2022 to now, clearly, if I were to speak with the president, I would just tell him 3 things. We got this. What we are doing, we train of the cities. The 23,000 illegal guns we removed off our streets, decrease in shoplifting, not like other cities are experiencing it. You're not seeing disorder on our streets from encampments. And so my word is, we have this under control. Now, we can use help with the federal government, and I would speak with the president and our national leaders. We need your help in going after these semi-automatic and automatic weapons. That's what we need. We need help in making sure that we can coordinate when it comes down to dangerous gang members like we have been doing. So there's a place for the federal government to help cities, but we don't need anyone to take over our police department. We have an excellent police commissioner, an excellent chief of patrol, my deputy mayor of public safety. We have crime under control here in the city.
Well, I could talk about this all day with you, so please come back very soon. I really appreciate it, Mayor. Thank you so much. Right. Coming up next, we're turning our eyes to the race for New York governor. We're speaking with the current Lieutenant Governor, Antonio Delgado, about his bid to unseat Governor Kathy Hochul. Welcome back to Politics Unusual. Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado plans to challenge Governor Kathy Hochul in the Democratic primary next year. Just this week, he joined elected officials and advocates to call on state lawmakers to go back to Albany for a special session to deal with looming federal funding cuts. So joining us now is the Lieutenant Governor, Antonio Delgado. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So kind of help explain what exactly you're looking for from state lawmakers when they go back up to Albany.
Well, I think it's important to understand that the Republican budget cuts that happen in D.C. are going to be devastating for New Yorkers. Million and a half folks are going to lose health insurance. SNAP recipients are also going to be impacted. Hospitals are going to close. We're talking a budget shortfall here in New York of upwards of billions of dollars, some projections in the outer years of $10 billion every year. That is a devastating outcome, not to mention the increased spending that is going to be poured into ICE. So we're going to see more and more ICE raids here in New York. Now, before this bill passed, we had a lot of elected officials saying, call your congressman. This is going to be devastating. This is going to be horrifying. So basically telling New Yorkers, do something to stop this. But then once the bill passed, we don't see that same action from the governor. If I was the governor, I would call for a special session. I would make sure we brought the body back to Albany and we pass legislation that would raise revenue, tax the ultra wealthy, tax big corporations, and begin to plug the economic hole. Can we fill the whole gap? No, we cannot fill the whole gap. But does that mean we shouldn't try to mitigate the economic harm that is going to be brought upon so many New Yorkers once this budget goes into effect? We certainly should step up and do more.
So let's talk about your campaign. Why exactly are you running?
We need leadership that's willing to actually put people first. What I've seen here in New York, and I think it's the reason why we saw the state move from left to right, the biggest swing from left to right in the country, is because despite being a blue state, despite talking about being for working people, despite saying we want to lift up the everyday worker, all the trend lines, all of our policies seem to reinforce economic inequality. Why aren't we really tackling affordable housing in a meaningful way? That doesn't just mean giving tax credits to developers. It actually means building state capacity to support New Yorkers, meaning a statewide rental assistance program. 7 out of 10 New Yorkers right now qualify for federal HUD assistance. What's the state doing to provide that assistance? A $50 million pilot program, which the governor was forced to do by the state legislature. Healthcare. Who's talking about universal healthcare here in New York? I don't hear the government talking about that. What about childcare, universal childcare, or a higher minimum wage? These are the kind of bold initiatives that we in New York have to be able to speak to and deliver for New Yorkers if we want to assure them that we actually care about everyday folk.
You had a pretty public falling out with the governor. It's my understanding, though, that since this public falling out, the governor has stripped you of your executive email account, taken away your cell phone, reduced your staff to 1 employee, and has blocked you from using an office that's closer to your home. Has that made it harder to do your job?
Of course it's made it harder to do my job. And I think it also speaks to the power dynamics that I'm alluding to that unfolded in the 2024 race and how a lot of elected officials, be they Democrat or Republican, often view their power provided to them by the people in an official capacity as a tool to exact political retribution. And we are very quick to point out the different ways the president decides to operate in that fashion. But I would just point out that we have a governor right here in New York that feels very comfortable doing the same thing. Despite that, I am still out there engaging with the public. I'm still an independently elected official, and I will continue to fight for New Yorkers to bring accountability to state government.
You are. But according to a deep dive by Politico just recently released this week, you had 91 pre-announced public appearances last year before this public falling out. And when Hochul was lieutenant governor, she would hold more than 400 per year. And that number this year seems to be even less for you. Why is that number so low?
So here's the thing that I would say. Before I said that Biden should step down, the governor was asked about a week before that how I was doing. And her response was, doing a phenomenal job. The tune changed, and the characterization of my work ethic changed after that statement was made, after I made the statement that I made. So I would, ask folks to ask themselves, what was the actual decision point based on? Why the change in tune? Now, I don't understand why there's a mindset to want to devalue the work that I bring to the table, or even suggest that I don't have the work ethic that ultimately got me in the spot that I found myself in today. Someone who served 2 terms in Congress and got 18 bills signed into law, 10 by Trump, 8 by Biden. Someone with a track record of really working hard and being effective, and similarly in the same fashion, Lieutenant Governor. I think it's very unfortunate, to be honest, that this is even a line of attack that the governor and her administration feel is worth pursuing.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I can't thank you enough for being here. Thank you so much. I look forward to having you back on very soon. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Still to come, we're taking the pulse of the people regarding a brand new law that just went into effect in one New Jersey town. Why parents could now face jail time due to the bad behavior of their children. There's a brand new law in one area of New Jersey that could put parents in jail for their kids' bad behavior. It's in Gloucester Township, and it's called Minors and Parent Responsibility. It says parents will be held accountable for public disturbances caused by their child. Parents could go to jail for 3 months and face a hefty fine if their kids are found guilty of multiple offenses. The legislation was passed last month following a massive fight last year involving 500 minors during a drone show. Here's what Garden State residents are saying about it.
I don't think it's a bad idea, honestly, because I think it will push parents to be more aware of what their kids are doing.
Well, parents do have a big role in their children, as long as you're, raising them and telling them what's right and wrong. But at the end of the day, some kids will going to make their own decisions, unfortunately, and I don't think that the parents should be thrown in jail over it.
I would literally take the blame for them, and I would do the time for them, because I can't picture my daughter or my son sitting in a jail cell for making a mistake. It could have been a minor mistake.
And we'll continue to check in with people across our area. Next up, we're going to test your knowledge of the tri-state region, so stay with us as we take a look at some political history.